Guy here with a quick message.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool.
Hello and welcome along to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Matt Addison, with Paul Gorst and Kai Delaney both with me as we talk through the Champions League draw and all of the rest of the latest Liverpool topics after they beat Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa last weekend and play Newcastle United on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit about all of those things in the next few minutes. But Gorsty, the biggest story from today is the Champions League draw. Second time lucky, or potentially a little bit unlucky for Liverpool in that they've got a slightly harder draw second time around. Inter Milan, it is going to be in the last 16. What's your reaction to that and the very strange sort of events of the two Champions League draws that we've had to sit through today?
Yeah, well, the first one was a bit strange, wasn't it? Andre Arshavin was doing the draw, and he obviously picked out Manchester United against Villarreal. And when I seen it, I thought, hang on, is that even allowed? And then I put something in our work group about it and didn't really get a response. And then they kind of just said, oh, well, United can't draw can't draw Villarreal, so you'll have to do it again. And then he pulled out Man City, and it was all a bit strange, wasn't it? It was like, well, surely there's got to be some sort of integrity question there, and it's compromised the entire draw. And then within about, 10, 15 minutes after the draw was completed, they started hearing things on Twitter and stuff that it was going to be redrawn, and then it was confirmed, so they moved it to 2:00, and then we were just waiting to see what the redraw was. I think Liverpool will have preferred the first one over the second one. It's a trip to Inter Milan, Italian champions, of course, and probably a better team than Red Bull Salzburg are. You aren't even the Salzburg of 2019 when they had Minamino and Hwang, and of course Erling Haaland and Jesse Marsch as well. He's obviously just been sacked at RB Leipzig, so yeah, Liverpool will much have preferred the first draw, but I've written in a kind of hastily rewritten preview piece today that Liverpool won't be scared of anyone they get in the draw. I think alongside City, Bayern Munich and possibly Paris Saint-Germain, they are the four big hitters in this competition. It's kind of a little bit of a changing landscape in European football at the moment. Barcelona aren't even in the last 16. Manchester United are not the force of old. Real Madrid are not either. So a little bit of an opportunity to grasp what's the phrase? Grasp the brass knuckle, is it? Reach for it, and something that Liverpool can definitely do, because they've been obviously Champions League winners in 2019, finalists in 2018, and had it not been for a crippling injury list last season, they would have given Real Madrid more of a game than they did across those two legs. So I think Liverpool will have preferred the first one, but they won't be losing too much sleep over the second one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the fundamental point, isn't it, Kai? Whoever Liverpool had got, even if they'd have got Paris Saint-Germain, they'd have still fancied themselves to do it. Salzburg would have been slightly easier, but Inter Milan, as Gorsty said, Italian Serie A champions, but Liverpool should still, over the two legs, be able to beat them.
Yeah, it's not a bad draw at all. I think, most people associated with Liverpool probably would have taken that before the draw was made, before the first draw was made, I should say. Yeah, I think if they'd have got PSG, even as you say, they'd have fancied themselves. Obviously, they got the star-studded lineup up front, but I think you can get at them defensively, and I think anyone in the competition, Liverpool would fancy themselves and back themselves as favourite. Certainly with fans back involved at Anfield this season, we saw how much of a factor the Anfield crowd has been in their runs to the final in Kiev, and then of course winning it in Madrid. So yeah, I think Liverpool won't have any concerns, and this Inter side, it's a little bit similar to AC Milan, where great club and heritage and history, and the badge probably is maybe a bit more stronger than the squad and the team they're going to face on the pitch. The likes of Edin Dzeko, Alexis Sanchez, they've got a few names, but maybe the best years are behind them. So yeah, I don't think Liverpool have too many concerns.
The away goals rule, Gorsty, has obviously been taken away this time. That's not something that Liverpool will have to think about. I'm a little bit conflicted on it. I'm not quite sure whether it's the right thing or not. Will it make any difference, do you think, to Liverpool, or is it just one of those things that it is what it is?
Maybe, for Liverpool under previous manager, yes. You'd argue that Rafa Benitez might have set Liverpool up a little bit differently away from home to at home. But I don't really think Liverpool changed too much nowadays, do they, under Jurgen Klopp? With the current squad that they've got, they do just tend to look to go out and, kind of exert their own stamp on proceedings and don't worry too much about the opposition. Obviously, they will have a certain plan for certain players and whatever else, but I don't think it's quite an issue as what it might have been in the past, particularly when you think of the squad that Liverpool have got as well now. It's star-studded, isn't it? It's not the 05 team under Benitez where they had to kind of play cat and mouse here and there and didn't quite have the firepower. This is a Liverpool team that will go anywhere now with the number one player in the world and Mohamed Salah and Trent and Alisson, Van Dijk, Matip, and Fabinho, just kind of that brick wall really down the centre of the pitch. It's a real solid spine that they've got, isn't it? Thiago settling in now alongside Henderson and Fabinho on a more consistent basis than we've ever seen since he's been at Liverpool. And they've got 4 going into 3 up front with the return of Firmino, and obviously Jota's been in great form. So, yeah, all over the pitch, Liverpool have got quality. So I don't think they'll be going into certain games worrying about, getting a away goal and then we'll sit on it for half an hour and try and catch another one. I think they'll just go and just put their personality onto the pitch and see how they go.
Yeah, home and away so far this season, goal scoring hasn't been a massive issue, has it? So I'm sure Liverpool will be very much the favourites for the tie and will expect to go through. Just having a look at a couple of the other ties, Kai. Man City playing Sporting Lisbon. Chelsea got Lille in the first and the second draw. How big an impact do you think it will have in terms of the Premier League title race that Liverpool have probably got the hardest draw out of their title rivals?
I don't think at this stage it will maybe have as much of an impact. I do think, later down the line when the fixtures are more congested and each game, you've maybe got 10 or 12 games left and every game is really valuable and important. It might have more of an impact later down the line, but I think at this stage, Liverpool have got the squad certainly to deal with 2 or 3 games a week. We saw how seriously Klopp's taken the competition. They'd already won 5 on the bounce and confirmed top spot, and he still started Salah and Mane at the San Siro in what was effectively a dead rubber for Liverpool. So, all 3 of the English teams, City and Chelsea included, are well equipped to deal with the load and the games that are going to come when you go deep into these competitions. Chelsea obviously dealing with few more injuries at the moment, but Liverpool have been there last year. I don't think what Chelsea are going through is anywhere near what Liverpool had to deal with. I think at this stage it should be too much of an issue.
And of course, Manchester United playing Atletico Madrid, Gorsty, Real Madrid, PSG, another big tie that kind of stands out. I think for me, it probably helps Liverpool in some ways that a couple of those big guns have drawn against each other. In that first draw, it was very much, you thought if the favourites went through, it'd be a really strong last 8. There are a couple of ties here where either a big team is going to go out or a smaller team against a smaller team. One of those has got to go through. I think in that sense, even though Liverpool have got a harder draw in the last 16, it might actually help them in the long term. Yeah,
it's a good point. Really good point. I think, obviously, Inter Milan, the Serie A champions, are going to be more of a difficult prospect than the Austrian champions, you would imagine. But I still don't think Liverpool will be too worried about them, particularly since they've won Serie A. They've lost the manager, they've lost the star striker, and they've lost Hakimi, who's obviously left as well. So they're really struggling in terms of finances and, defending the Serie A title. I think it's actually AC Milan who's top of Serie A at the moment, isn't it? Or it was before the weekend's round of games, and Liverpool have beaten AC Milan home and away. So I don't think the cross-city cousins are going to cause too much of an issue as well. That's a good point in terms of the other draws, seeing the likes of possibly Real Madrid or PSG get knocked out. Does the country kind of exclusion thing, does that come off for the quarterfinals?
I think so for the quarters, yeah.
So if Manchester United get through, Liverpool fancy them over the 2 legs, won't they? Certainly. If they can avoid a Man City or possibly a Chelsea and Bayern Munich, I think Liverpool will have every faith of going to the semi-finals of this competition and then going from there. We know that they're good enough to win it. They won it it could be 3 years on it by the time it comes around, but or 2 years. So yeah, I think it is a good point in terms of looking at the overall draw and seeing who will be knocked out rather in these next upcoming legs. But there's no doubt they would have preferred the first draw for themselves, if not quite for the rest of the draw. When, as you say, it was a case of all the big hitters avoiding each other and looked like they were all, pretty nailed on to go into the last 8.
We all know the reasons why Liverpool didn't go as far last season, Kai, as what they would have wanted to. But does that add anything in terms of this season's competition? Does it give them any extra motivation at all? Or do you think they just would have been among the favourites anyway and it doesn't particularly make much difference?
No, I don't particularly think Liverpool are going to want it anymore. I don't think they could have wanted it more, if I'm being honest. I think, at the start of the season, they'll set their targets and they're going to want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. We saw how close they came to doing that in 2019. They lost the league on the last day of the season to City, obviously, and then went and won the Champions League just a couple of weeks later. So they're certainly capable of putting in the performances and going the distance in both of the competitions. I just think it's a case of taking it each round at a time. And as you say there, it's arguably better draw for Liverpool to have Inter Milan. Of course, not in terms of Salzburg's going to be an easier match on paper, but if the risk is greater in terms of a trickier tie, but once you do get through, some of the big hitters have gone and the path could be a little bit clearer. You've got Ajax and Benfica who playing each other, so one of those two is going to be in the quarterfinals. We saw at the year Liverpool won the Champions League, they had Porto in the quarterfinals, so you're not going to get much of an easier draw than that deep into the competition, and they might find themselves in a similar situation this season.
Yeah, very much so. Well, away from the Champions League draw, Liverpool, of course, beat Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa by 1-0 at Anfield on Saturday. It was a really important win, Gorst, a real fight for the Reds to get over the line. But get over the line they did. Was this another example, do you think, of the mentality monsters type thing in many ways? It was a really close-fought game. Liverpool had to earn the right to get the 3 points, but in the end, that's exactly what they managed. Yeah,
I think so. I think it was a big weekend in the title race for all three teams at the top, wasn't it, to show their reserves of character. City, by all accounts, weren't at their best against Wolves, and I was at Wolves last week to see what they can do as a defensive unit, and once again they were very good against City and undone by a very harsh penalty, but a penalty that they did score and they did win. And Chelsea at home to Leeds, again another hard fought one. Leeds really given as good as they got, but Chelsea somehow found a way to win, and it was the same for Liverpool, wasn't it? Liverpool, I wasn't at the game, I was off the weekend, but Kai was there in my place, so we'll have a better chance to inform our listeners about the game itself. But from what I've seen, the extended highlights and so on, Liverpool were much the better team, created all the games, big chances, and on another day it could have been another 3 or 4-0 win, but it wasn't to be. But they've stuck at it and come away with a big 3 points, because it would have been such a deflating result to have not come away from that with maximum points. I think now Liverpool have got to be looking at it in the title race, thinking that they probably can't afford to be dropping too many points now at Anfield. They've obviously already drawn with Brighton, City and Chelsea. So, the season they won the Premier League title, I think Brighton were the only team to take points off them at Anfield, and that was after the title had already been won. So that's the kind of standard you have to be held to for your home form if you want to win titles. And from here on in, Liverpool have got to be looking at maximum points. So they got them at Anfield, got them against Aston Villa, and now it's a slightly easier looking fixture with Newcastle on Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll come to Newcastle very shortly. Kai, you and I were both at the game. I was really impressed, actually, as much as it was frustrating for Liverpool to be frustrated by Aston Villa's play. The way that they set up, I thought, was very much Jose Mourinho-esque. But I have to say, after just a couple of weeks of Steven Gerrard being in that job, to have got them set up that defensively well drilled, I thought was actually a real sign of how good a coach and how good a manager Steven Gerrard really is.
Yeah, it's interesting you make that comparison. Actually, one of my good friends is a Chelsea fan, and first thing I said to him after the game was it reminded me exactly of the Gerrard slip match when the only intention that Mourinho and Chelsea had that day was just to spoil the party, as he put it. Straight from the word go, they were taking times on throw-ins. Players were leaving the ball for each other to take a free kick. Oh, I thought you were taking it, and little games. The goalkeeper was drinking from his water bottle. He must have been pretty thirsty. He was had quite a few goes on that between goal kicks. So yeah, it wasn't a pretty game. And Theo Squires made the point in his piece after the match that if this is Steven Gerrard's team and this is how his teams play, then it's not a style that Liverpool are going to want, and he won't be. He couldn't do that at Liverpool. And I think he maybe got a few replies saying that it's a one-off game, and I think that was his point. He won't be playing like that every single week. I think Villa have been playing, pretty attacking football, and even against City, they didn't really dig in and employ the tactics they did at Anfield on Tuesday night. But on Saturday afternoon. But yeah, it was a game plan, and to be honest, it worked. If you look at it in the fact that Liverpool won the game with a penalty, with not a long time left to go in the game. Aside from that, then it would have been a ball 0-0 draw, and that's exactly what Gerrard wanted, and that's what they almost got. So yeah, I think the game plan worked and was executed well. They were just unfortunate, and Liverpool much the better side, but ultimately the pressure and clear penalty. I think Gerrard questioned it in a few of his interviews after the game, saying he thought Salah had fouled Mings first, but I didn't see that for me. I think he beat him all ends up, and Mings brought him down. But a good attempt, Gerrard, but fortunately for him, wasn't quite able to see it through.
Yeah, really impressive setup from him. You mentioned the penalty there. I'm sure you'll have seen that incident, Gorst. I think the actual penalty itself was really impressive from Mohamed Salah. Emi Martinez was in his face. Tyrone Mings was as well. It took seemingly 3 or 4 minutes. I'm sure it wasn't quite that long, but it did feel like a long time before that penalty was taken. And as Mohamed Salah so often does, just put it straight in the corner and scored.
Yeah, it's another kind of string to his bow with Salah with the penalties. I think he's scored now 15 in a row. So he's kind of looking up at that Matt Letizia record, which is 23, I think, between 94 and 2000. So we'll have that one in the sights. And it's not just something where he's just happened to have scored quite a few penalties in a row. This is a player who leaves no stone unturned in trying to be his absolute best. And I think the anecdote from Ben Foster after the Watford game told as much, where Liverpool have won 5-0. He's come off scoring one of the goals of the season after one of the assists of the season. And he's asking Ben Foster, if I get a penalty, where would you have dived? So he's just always looking for them marginal gains. And lo and behold, the very next game, Salah scores a penalty to make it 3-2 against Atletico Madrid. So it just kind of speaks to his willingness to improve. He's probably the best player in the world at the moment, and he's still looking for those little things that just make him a little bit better and a little bit more renowned and revered. And for any goal scorer, a penalty is a perfect opportunity to get your tally up, isn't it? So he's wrestled those penalty taking duties off James Milner on a full-time basis. It was a couple of years ago now, maybe, and I think he scored 19 of his last 20, thinking back to one he missed against Huddersfield in October 2017. The one he missed was against AC Milan in the Champions League in September, but other than that, he's stuck them all away, and without that, Liverpool would have drawn, wouldn't he? So, it's just another thing that Salah works at, and, he just tries to be the absolute best he can be, can't he? And at the moment, there's no one better.
Yeah, absolutely. 21 goals, I think that is so far this season. Plenty more to come for Mohamed Salah. He'll hope, of course, that they come against Newcastle United on Thursday. That's also at Anfield. I'm not entirely sure why that game is on Thursday night, to be honest. I can't quite work that one out, why it's not on a Wednesday as it normally would be. But we will preview that game next. Kyle, come to you first on this one. Newcastle lost 4-0 to a struggling Leicester City at the weekend. This has just got to be a big win for Liverpool, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's no other way of looking at it. It's we've seen Liverpool grind out a couple of 1-0s, the games that haven't been pretty in the last week or so. But I think you'd be expecting Liverpool to get back to the performances that were scoring 2, 3, 4 without even trying really before the last couple of games. This is the perfect time to play Newcastle. I think they've got over their little wave of new owners and riding that crest if that ever did come. I know they got their first win last week, but brought crashing back down to earth midweek. And in January they're obviously expecting pumping in some money, reinforcements. They've been linked with Sven Botman quite heavily, who was linked to Liverpool I think a year or two ago. So if you get them in January, February time, it might be a different outfit to what you'd expect to play on Thursday night. So I don't see anything other than a comfortable victory for Liverpool on Thursday.
Yeah, it's these kind of games, isn't it, Gorsty, that we just expect Liverpool to turn up and win these days. I think maybe a few years ago you might be slightly worried that Newcastle could sit in and maybe nick a 0-0 draw or something, but it just, without wanting to jinx them ahead of Thursday, it just doesn't quite feel like that's realistic anymore.
Yeah, not at all. They just got to go and win it quite comfortably, haven't they? Quite convincingly. Newcastle are dreadful. They struggling to think of a worse team in the Premier League, if I'm honest, and they're praying for January, aren't they? They can get to spend some of the newfound riches, but difficult to make a case for anything other than a Liverpool win on Thursday night. You'll take a 1-0 now if they had to, but you'd fancy Liverpool at the form that they've been in, goal scoring form particularly. Maybe not so much the last two Premier League games, but across the entire season in all competitions. You'd expect Liverpool to go and win 3, 4, maybe even 5. I think Salah will be licking his lips. I think he might have seen Match of the Day and seen Leicester ripping through Newcastle almost at will at times. And he'll fancy a bit of that on Thursday night.
I was just about to say, if there's ever a game for your triple captain, it might be Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to it. I mean, just in terms of Newcastle generally, Gorsty, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the transfers. Kai mentions there what they might do in January and stuff. But in some ways, I almost wonder if it's, I'm sure a lot of Premier League teams are looking at it this way. It's probably better for the Premier League if they do go down, because it just delays the inevitable sort of rise with all of the money they've got for an extra season or so. I'm sure Newcastle fans won't be thinking that, but probably the rest of the Premier League is probably quite keen for them to continue being this poor.
Yeah, 100%. But look, money's it doesn't automatically mean you're going to become a big-time player. Look at the money Everton have spent over the last 5 years, seemingly to go backwards and backwards. They've spent 500 million or something along those lines, and they're in a worse shape now than they were when David Moyes was in charge, operating on a shoestring budget, and they had to utilise the loans pretty much every transfer window. Obviously, Newcastle operating in a different kind of market than Everton are, and we're able to, before financial fair play kind of put the brakes on them. But I don't know what kind of player they're going to be looking at targeting in January. They're going to need someone really sensible and with a football background to point them in the right direction, because from the things you see and the things you read, it does seem as though quite a lot of people willing to brief the media in an attempt to perhaps feel important in terms of this Newcastle project, and doesn't seem as though they've got a sensible structure in place that seems like Liverpool have got, and seems like Manchester City, because it's more than just money that you're throwing at it. It's got to be the right players that you're bringing in, and I'm not sure what level they feel that they can go for in January. If they have a bad January, then there's every likelihood that they're going to be relegated, and they're going to be spending a season in the Championship. And how much appetite within the ownership structure is there for them to be showing up on a Tuesday night against whoever it may be? I'm not too sure. Cold Wednesday night at Deepdale and wherever it may be, it could be a difficult one for them. So they need to get January right, and that only gives them a fighting chance of staying up. But I don't think they will, to be honest. I think from what I've seen so far this season, they are really one of the 3 worst teams in the league, and Liverpool have just got to go and pile a misery on them on Thursday night.
Yeah, they look in real trouble, don't they? I think it's going to be really hard, actually, despite the money, to convince anyone to go there, because there is that risk that they could get relegated. Someone like a James Tarkowski has been linked, but are Burnley going to get rid of him? I can't see that, given their sort of troubles so far this season. But just before we finish the podcast, then we'll pick our teams for this game. Complicated slightly by the Tottenham COVID outbreak. We don't quite know what's going to happen with them at the weekend. We might expect a couple of changes if that one goes ahead for the Newcastle one, but obviously we are recording this a little bit in advance. Alisson, Gorsty will be in goal. Assuming that both games on this week, Thursday and Sunday, would you expect any changes in the back line, or is it just that same four once again?
Well, we know Klopp doesn't like that Thursday, Sunday lineup, does he? It's like the Wednesday, Saturday one, particularly with it being the Wednesday, Saturday lunchtime kickoff. It's a little bit later on the Sundays, and it's 4:30, but I still think he might look to chop and change quite considerably, actually, given that Newcastle aren't exactly a high flyer coming to Anfield. I think it could be a game for Ibrahim Konate at centre-back alongside Van Dijk, maybe even Tsimikas ahead of Robertson. I think Trent will play and Alisson will play and Van Dijk.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Konate as well. I think that there's a fighting chance for Tsimikas at left back. Kai, who do you expect to come in? Is there even a case for someone like Joe Gomez now back from injury? Is this maybe an ideal game to put him back into?
Yeah, I've got to say I was thinking exactly the same along the lines of Konate and Tsimikas. There's not a chance he's going to want to play Joel Matip 3 games in a week, with his injury records, and he's been great this season. And touchwood hasn't had an injury yet, but it's because Klopp's been able to manage his games and put him out when he needs to, with the likes of Konate and Gomez available. It might come a little bit too soon for Gomez, perhaps, to be thrown straight into a Premier League match. He might be looking at maybe a cup or something to ease him back in. But yeah, for me, it would be Konate, and then just give Robertson that rest as well. And we've seen Tsimikas has been a more than able deputy when given the chance this season.
I'll stick with you for the midfield as well. I'm going to go with Naby Keita, actually. I think we might see him from the start, probably in place of Thiago. I didn't think had the best of games at the weekend. Who's your midfield going to be?
I'm actually going to stick with the Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho 3 myself. Naby Keita was there on Saturday, of course, and him and Gomez actually doing quite extensive work with the fitness coach after the game. Once all the other fans had emptied out, we were staying behind for another hour or so, and they had quite an intense program. So they're obviously not far away and working back towards that first start. But I just really enjoying that run of Thiago, Henderson, and Fabinho together, and Liverpool doing well with their results, and won 15 of 16 starts when Thiago and Fabinho started together. So I think just keep that 3 together as long as you can.
Yeah, I'm going to save them, I think, for Sunday. That's more in my head rather than using them against the Newcastle team that Liverpool should beat. Gorsty, who are you going to go with? Is a shout for Keita, Milner even, or possibly even Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain?
Yeah, I'm more with you, Matt. I think it might be a nice time to bring Naby Keita back into it. He was obviously in good form before the injury, wasn't he? So I think he might play. Milner is also a good option. Don't think Oxlade-Chamberlain will play. I think he's obviously played on Saturday and then the game before on Tuesday in Milan, didn't he? So I think it might be a good opportunity for him to have a breather. So I think I'm minded to go with Henderson. So Henderson, Milner, and Keita a little bit further forward in my midfield 3.
Interesting. Couple of changes in there. We'll stick with you as well, Gorsty, for the attack. Roberto Firmino back in training now, but wasn't in the squad at the weekend. Diogo Jota was, but he only came off the bench. I suppose it's probably more likely to be Jota than on Thursday.
Yeah. Trying to make a case for Minamino. Trying to get him some rhythm, as Klopp always likes to talk about, doesn't he? But I don't know. I think I've made quite a lot of changes there in my defence and my midfield, so I'd be tempted to start Jota down the middle. I'm not too sure what Origi's status is. We will have to keep an eye on him, whether he trains or not this week. But I'll go with Salah, Mane, and Jota down the middle.
Which three are you going for, Kai? Is there an argument that if Origi is fit, you throw him in? Obviously, with AFCON in mind next month, it's probably worth giving him a bit of rhythm as well in the lead up to that.
Yeah, you could completely argue that. I think he was really unlucky to miss the game on Saturday with a slight knock. He's been in great form and seems to be building up a bit of rhythm before January, as we say. We're going to miss Salah and Mane for a handful of games, so it might be an idea to involve him. I'm going to start Jota, given that he was fit and was involved on Saturday, and then you've got Firmino and Origi on the bench there to come on and help themselves to a goal or two each.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of options for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp to pick from. Just to finish then, we'll pick our score predictions. I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool. That's probably quite a conservative estimate, really, for the number of goals that Liverpool will be aiming for. Gorsty, what do you reckon it might be on Thursday?
Yeah, I don't see any other outcome, to be honest. I think Newcastle will be quite willing to get men behind the ball, and I don't think they've got enough organisation or enough qualities to withhold Liverpool. So should we say 3-0?
Kai, is it a 3-0, or are you going for something slightly more ambitious?
I think it's a 3 at least. This is where you lose 1-0 and this clip gets played back. But let's go for a 4. Liverpool scored quite a few goals in their last few weeks. They've done 4 a few times, so let's go for a 4.
Yeah, absolutely no problems with scoring goals at the moment for Liverpool, so we'll see how it does pan out on Thursday. But that just about brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thanks to both Paul Gorst and Kai Delaney for joining me. I'm sure you know by now that we have all of the coverage of the Newcastle game across the Echo, Liverpool.com and Blood Red, and we'll be back on Friday with the next episode of this particular podcast to discuss that game and, of course, preview Tottenham on Sunday. Until next time, though, it's goodbye for now.